Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The USA Global TV and Radio Network is truly a global show. Today we're on the corner bookstore. My name is Red O'Loughlin, and I'm honored today to have Candy Wolff. She's a speaker, an author, a writer, business professional, and a tragedy in her life started her on a book writing portion of her life. I don't know that she would have been on otherwise. Anyway, Candy, please join me.
Hi, Red. Thank you so much for having me.
We were just talking backstage. I was doing a little research on you, and I got your copy of your Be Prepared for the Unexpected download from your website. And then your book that you wrote is Lost and Found in Mexico, A Widow's Road to Recovery. So the hint right there, the Widow's Road, is something. So would you tell us a little bit about that event, because it changed your life in so many ways, and I think you can do a very good job in letting us know where you were and what happened.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, my 50th birthday was in January of 2023, and my husband and I always went to Mexico, actually to Cabo, almost every year, and just, to get away. So when my 50th came, that's where I wanted to go. And that's where my life actually turned upside down. We had a great week. And then the day before we were supposed to come home, I woke up that Friday morning, January 27th, and he had passed in the middle of the night. So I spent about 4 days down there dealing with the cops and the funeral home and just everything, trying to figure out how I was going to be able to get back home to my kids, back to Minnesota. So that's where this whole story began.
Did you have any indication at all that he was that close to death?
No, there was no, he hadn't been sick. There was nothing that I would have, foreseen why he would have passed away. I was told from the autopsy report that it was a massive heart attack, and that he did go quickly, which was a blessing, that he wasn't in any pain, and that even if I would have heard something, or if we would have had a doctor or anybody around, it was one of those heart attacks where nobody could have saved him.
So that makes it doubly worse, because there wasn't any preparation whatsoever.
Yeah, correct.
Which kind of leads us into a discussion that we're going to have a little bit later on, is how do you get prepared for the unexpected, of which you became an expert over a period of time, short period of time. So let's start off first. Your background in business, I guess primarily has been an event planner, or is it more than just that?
Event planning, marketing, sales. That's pretty much been my whole life. I love people. I love working with people. I love growing, helping businesses grow. And I love planning events for, small to, I've done corporate, sales incentive trips all the way to, just small little events. So it's making people happy, I guess is what I love to do. And then when all this came about, I never thought I'd ever write a book in my life. I spoke at trade shows, breakout sessions once in a while, but really never saw myself on a big stage or getting the response that I have gotten over the last year and a half of the tragedy and me wanting to help people.
What was the largest event you've ever planned?
Oh my goodness. Took a group, grew every year, about 80 people from a company that I contracted with. We went on a trip. It grew every year, but this trip was down, oh, Lord, which one was this one? Believe down to New Orleans was the one. So it was, 40 employees plus one, and we would go for 4 days of, it's booking the flights, the hotels, making sure the food's all ready to go, all the events, you got your busing and your drinks for that. And, your extracurricular, all your presents that would go to the rooms every day, and making sure everyone was safe. And then I got them back home.
Did you have any other exotic places besides New Orleans that you
Oh
did
gosh, we went
events?
to Scottsdale and Las Vegas, down to Orlando, Nashville, Tennessee, then New Orleans. We were supposed to be going to New York on April 1st of 2020, but we all know the world basically shut down then. So for planning trips, that was the extent. For me, like the most exotic probably was, besides going to Mexico, to St. Martin, which was a beautiful island.
Okay, so you started your writing career abruptly, in a sense, because as you said earlier, you had no intention of becoming an author. It just kind of evolved. So were you getting pressure from other people to document what happened to you so you could help others? Or is this something that just kind of came to you as part of your personal life, your faith, your feeling to give back and help others?
It really was me coming back, and the story was such tragic, I guess, when I tell people what would happen, and it would be everyone I would talk to, they're like, you need to write a book. Like, you have so much in there that could help people. And it was probably for 3 months. Like anyone I talked to was like, you have to write a book. You really need to write a book. And so like, I really reflected and was like, all right, God, like, I guess you're telling me something. Like, I have a story to tell, and you're going to use this horrible tragedy for me to be able to help people down the road. So that's how it all began.
Okay, so you started writing, and I'm sure as being in business in marketing and sales, everything you've done professional writing over time. So the writing, I'm sure, is probably not a big deal. But when we start writing about ourselves and our personal things, sometimes our brains disconnect a little bit and the emotions pour out, and it's difficult to keep that train of thought. How did you battle that? A lot of
Yeah,
cheers.
it lots of tears, lots and lots of tears. I actually had a good friend, that is a professional writer as well, who, kind of guided me along the way. But it was, it was a healing process. But like you said, there's so many emotions because you're reliving the whole story all over again. And truly, it was pretty fresh because it was probably, he passed away in January, and I want to say it was May was when I actually sat down and started writing. So a lot of like recording, going through day by day, like what happened. So when you could write, I had documentation. So, because you do forget stuff. I mean, it's when you're going through grief, it's so hard to explain, but it's like an out of body experience almost, and you are brain fog pretty much. So what really helped was recording myself and kind of going step by step, and then pulling from there. Okay, what should go in the book, what should stay out of the book. So that's kind of how the process went. But like you said, lots of tears, lots of emotions. Like when you have grief, it's an up and down emotional roller coaster. And that's what I was on for a good 9 months of writing the story.
Okay, so you're writing, and you're putting together the events and your lessons learned because you're trying to help others.
Yes.
And so in the part of this thing, it's like anything else. At some point in time, as authors, we have to declare victory and move on, even though we have a lot more to write. And
Yes.
sometimes we get into that editing process and it never ends, and you wonder, how can I declare victory and move on? And so who helped you with all the editing? You mentioned you had a writer friend. Did you have others that were beta readers or help people that would help with the actual writing? I mean, the actual editing itself.
The editing, yeah. So I have a couple friends that I did pass the manuscript along to, that were professors. Two of them were, and then as well, I have an amazing publishing company actually here in the cities, and she had a couple great editors, that went through. But like you said, there's so much to be said. And then when you have other people read it and they're like, I don't know if this needs to be there. And then you think, well, this was really super important to me. And then, so it's, trying to make that decision. Does it need to go in? Does it not need to go in? And it's nice to have, I had probably 4 or 5 different people looking at the manuscript, giving me feedback, and then having like the final editor make those changes, and then me going through and reading, and then really focusing on, okay, where am I? What is the end game? And where is there like stuff that I could take out and possibly then use in another book, down the road. So like you said, it is so hard to know when to stop and when is it good? Like, when do you say, all right, this is ready to go publish? So it's tricky.
Well, before COVID, I used to have people come over the house and we would have hors d'oeuvres and wine, and I would give out chapters of the book because I write technically. And I want to, do you understand what I'm saying? Circle anything you don't understand. Mm-hmm. And I get pretty decent comments because these people, I'm in health and wellness genre. And so these are people not in that field at all. And I got some magnificent feedback. One of the best ones I ever got, and I talk about it fairly often with the authors groups, is if and when. I'm a big if person. If this happens, when is probably more appropriate in the writings that I do, because when gives you a different sense of perspective. So I said, if this happens, do this. Well, when this happens, do this. And so I went back through, I did a find 87 ifs. I think I changed 81 of them to when. I mean, that and what, there's several things that are there, but that was probably the biggest lesson I learned from my editing group. So that was one that I try to pass on. Another one, and since you're in that writing mode now, I saw on Facebook not long ago, talked about Hemingway. And I've been using this example in the last 5, 6, 7 times here on the corner bookstore. When you're writing and you get to the end of the chapter, now Hemingway writes a little bit differently than most of us, but even for my nonfiction stuff, it makes sense. He says, when you get to the end and you know what you want to say, stop. He says, that way, when you come back to it later, you already know what you want to write, as opposed to having written everything and now I have to link it into something new. Yes. He says that does a magnificent job for the brain because you're already there. You don't have to worry about when am I going to start, because that's already predetermined. But in the meantime, you have this extra time to, how do I want to link it to the next part of my book? And I just thought that's some really good advice that I pass on.
Yeah. I love that when you said not the, the if and the when, that's something that I use in my speaking all the time. It's not if something, but when it will happen. So I love that.
Okay. So on your book, Lost and Found in Mexico, that's available where? Your website, Amazon, and everywhere?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, through Kirkhouse Publishing, Ingram. So there's quite a few different ways that you can purchase it.
I should have asked you ahead of time, and I didn't. I had it written down here in my notes to do, and then we got caught up with time. We saw production engineer put up your book cover. Is there something in there that you would like to read from that, or make the opportunity for you if you'd like to?
Right. And let you can read whatever you want to. What would you, if there was something?
Give us a paragraph or two, a minute or something, just give you an idea of your style of writing so people have an expectation of, how do you write? What do you convey? That kind of thing. All
right. Can start. I'll just read a paragraph from the chapter 1 of the book. Just, to me, this is, I think really sets the book in motion. So chapter 1 is From Promise to Peril. You know how many months, sorry, my glasses. So you know how many months we will live, and we are not given a minute longer. Job 14:15. My husband's cheeks was purple like the moonless sky, and his body thick with the weight of the death. I knew he was gone. Still, I couldn't stop screaming. Before reason had a chance to set in, I went to the darkest place in my mind, pronouncing him dead on an accidental overdose. Those were the worst seconds of my life. I wish I could say that everything got better, but it didn't. All I knew now is that the phone shouldn't ring that early, and Mexico should be a place of rebirth, not the thing that steals your joy.
Leave me a little speechless. And from that, you wrote another book, this Be Prepared for the Unexpected. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a free downloadable PDF for people that, what I went through was I had an unexpected death in a foreign country. I was in Mexico. I didn't speak any English, Spanish. All I spoke was English. So I was dealing with the foreign government and then the U.S. Embassy, and then getting home to dealing with the finances, knowing that, I couldn't get into my husband's phone. I didn't know his code. I couldn't get into his computer. He took care of all of the finances. So everything was in his name. I couldn't even remember the safe number to get in to where our will and our life insurance and all of that was. So I learned so much in a short amount of time of, finding out that, he had lost his job like 5 years previous and really hadn't found a secured a steady job, coming to find out that he had taken all our money out of our retirement, and I had no idea. So my guide to the resilience is, it's a conversation starter for people to, what do people need to talk about before it's too late? Because we always think we have more time. We always think that we can talk about stuff tomorrow, and we never know when our last breath is going to be. So I want people to be prepared for that finance part of when you do lose a spouse, because it's hard enough when you're grieving and you're trying to plan a funeral, and then you have the weight of the world on your shoulders of finding out, well, I found out I had no money to my name. I didn't know who I was supposed to pay my mortgage to, because we live in this digital age now where there is no paper trails and everything is documented electronically. So I want people to have those conversations so they don't have to go what I go through, what I went through. As well, I look at myself as, I asked questions, but I was always told, we're fine, don't worry about it, we're taken care of. And I feel like I had my head buried in the sand, and I don't want that for other men or women. I mean, when you're married, you're living together, whatever it may be, you have to have those conversations. And this download is a conversation starter. It gives somebody a place to sit down and have those hard conversations.
So the word unexpected means many things in your life here recently.
Yeah.
The death, the digital world, finances. I mean, everywhere you turn around and look, unexpected popped up in front of you, it sounds like.
Yeah, was one thing after another. When you think, oh my goodness, how can this get seriously any worse? It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And, then you get to the point where it's like, okay, hopefully all the surprises are gone. I know where I'm at. Now I got to move forward. Now, how do I take what I've learned for myself to move forward? But also, like I said, I love to help people. And so I think that is a lot of why I wrote the book and why I have this, financial resilience talking piece, because I truly do want people to start to have those conversations, because so many people don't have them, and even in divorces, a lot of people don't have these conversations. So everyone should know where you're at, where everything is. Everyone should be on the same page.
Okay, so when you speak nowadays, you're speaking from both the personal experience that gets you into everything and the planning for the unexpected. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. Yes. It's just letting people know like what I went through and how hard it was, and how stressful. And it's like, I don't want that for you. I want you to know where you're at. I want both of you and your spouse to know where you're at. And, I've talked to so many financial planners that men and women will go in, and either one or the other take the lead on it, and the other one kind of sits back and was like, well, I don't need to know any of this. And so it's good to hear like financial planners that are like, no, everybody, you both need to know where you're at. You both need to be on the same page. And that just makes me so happy to hear that it's being pushed as well from, the financial planning aspect.
So how do you solve the digital problem when you don't know how to get into a particular account or bank, or it doesn't matter? If something is locked up in a digital world, it's going to be a difficult thing to solve. So can you give us some hints on what succeeded for you?
Well, which is really sad, but I ended up losing because of Apple when my husband passed away. It was locked up so much you couldn't, even with a death certificate, I could not get access to his phone. So I ended up losing like all the pictures he had, like anything that was on his phone literally was gone. I could have went to court, taken Apple to court, but obviously I had no money at that time. It would have cost me a lot more. But what I'm very happy, and this is something everybody should do, is Apple now has come out with a legacy program. So when you go into your general settings, you can go and find, it says legacy, click it on. You can add people to your account. So I have my kids on there. You print out this QR code. I've put it into the safe. And then all my kids need is, if something happens to me, is my death certificate and this QR code, and they will get access to my phone, which I wish we would have had that earlier, but we didn't. So that's, one reason, as well as like sharing your codes. And okay, if you don't even want to share your codes, at least write it down somewhere, but let your spouse or your partner know where it is. Electronic, thank God my middle son is an IT guy, and he was actually able to at least get me into my husband's email accounts. But as far as getting into the hard drive of the computer, I have a wonderful IT computer guy who did what he could do. He's known us for years, and I gave him the computer, and he went as far as he could without having to lose everything. So I just cannot emphasize enough that to be open and letting each other know your codes to get into like your phone and your computer, like I said, or your tablet, because that's where our life lives. And you don't want to be stuck like I was, just sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to begin, and have that stress. And then, everyone kept saying, you got to pay your mortgage. You got to pay your mortgage. And it's, I looked at them and I'd be like, you know what? I'd love to pay my mortgage, but I don't even know who my mortgage payment goes to, because, everything was digital. Another thing that I learned, which was a hard lesson to learn, was I went to the bank right away. I mean, we had separate accounts, but we were on each other's accounts. So I went into the bank to let them know Ross had passed. Well, then as soon as you let the bank know that, they shut the account down. So every single payment that needed to be paid now was going to bounce because this account was shut down. So that's one of the last things that you want to do. And I learned the hard way of wait to tell the bank that you've lost somebody until you have an opportunity to get know where those payments are going, how much everything is being paid, and being able to get a hold of whoever it is, whether it be your insurance, your mortgage, your utilities, any payments that are necessary, make sure you know where they're going before any accounts get shut down.
One of the terms you used in your book, Be Prepared for the Unexpected, was a digital will. That's something I'm not aware of. Tell me about that.
Well, we just used went online, you know, and had an online. You just download it, and you can, you know, fill out your will right then and there. We obviously didn't have a ton of assets, you know, house, cars, and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously, if you have more, I would recommend, you know, getting an attorney involved, getting a power of attorney as well. That's something I didn't have. And thank God I didn't need it, but I have heard from other people that they didn't have one and they needed one. So it just having something written of what are your wishes, like who's going to get what, who's going to, you know, you have kids underage, like who do you want to be in charge of the kids? What about the money? You know, beneficiaries is another thing. It's, you just, for the will, just like letting people know what you want once you're gone. So there are a lot of online resources where you can just Google it, download, fill it out. And I mean, it's written. Ours was printed and put into our safe. So we did have, if something would have happened to both of us, at least my kids, my parents, my in-laws would have known what our wishes were.
Okay, so it's a template you fill out that's digital and it meets the requirements of the state you're in, and that's the big thing.
Yes.
You already talked about the bank accounts, life insurance. Did you have any problems in that area? That should have been, well, you mentioned earlier the death certificate. I've been through this a couple times with family, and you know, you start out with a dozen death certificates and you find out you really should have had 2 dozen or maybe even 3 dozen. I was talking with a guy recently, and the state he's in, the price of death certificates is exorbitant, especially after the fact. And but you know, the one thing that I tell people, you know, when you get your death certificate, order extras, because you just never know. Even years later, you need one, and it's something that we don't think about in the moment because we just don't think about it.
Yeah, and that is absolutely true. And with me, so Ross passing away in Mexico, like I had the Mexican death certificate, but I couldn't do anything until the U.S. Embassy got me a U.S. death certificate. You cannot, a Mexican death certificate will not allow you to get your life insurance policy. So, but thank God I was told by a few people to make sure you think you need a dozen, get 2 dozen, get 3 dozen, whatever it is, because you have to have a death certificate for almost every single thing that you're trying to change. And when you do pass in another country, it adds a whole nother layer of issues of getting. I had the Mexican death certificate when I left Mexico, but then it took probably another 2 months to get a U.S. death certificate from the U.S. Embassy. And then we did have life insurance. We had 2 different policies. One, I didn't even have, like the person who sold it to us was no longer around. So I did that one by myself, it was pretty easy, for that. And I got that within a couple months, but we had one with State Farm for 17 years, and it was only $250,000, but that one took almost 6 to 7 months to get. It was like jumping through hoops because he passed away in Mexico. There is a whole nother set of procedures that they had to follow in order to pay out the life insurance to me.
Interesting, because all the military that die overseas, I wonder if they have the same kind of problem. But anyway, that's another.
I hope not. I pray that they don't.
You talked a little bit about asset management, sole or joint ownership of stuff, knowing your titles and your deeds and things, or whether you really have a complex enough account to really need to trust. And obviously, all of these things are not something that we as individuals know. Financial people know these things backwards and forwards. So you really need to get a financial expert involved for some aspects of things you don't even know you should be involved in.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, everyone should have a financial planner. You should be talking with an attorney. Like, do you need a will or do you need a trust? You know, it all depends on, like you said, what your assets are. And everyone should be working together to be able to protect you. I mean, you kind of do have to bubble yourself between insurance, life insurance, financial planner, and an attorney. I mean, those are your main three that you need to be dealing with.
And it's interesting. I had a situation. We had a freeze a couple of years ago here, and I lost a part of the pipe on the outside of the house. Well, I have an insurance policy on certain things run through my utility company. And well, I knew I had it, but I hired somebody to do it, a few $100s, boom, they're out there, they fix it. I call these people, okay, where do I send the bill? Oh, you're supposed to call us first. And so there, even though you have insurance, sometimes we think we're smart in doing things. And I said, well, it was on a Saturday night, Sundays. It doesn't matter. We're 24/7. Well, okay, fine. But that, I look at the fine, it's nothing in there that says 24/7. So it's just, it's interesting, those things like that. But you did talk about insurance policies and retirement accounts, but you emphasize, I think there are rules on retirement accounts that you have to abide by. And if you don't know what the rules are, maybe sometimes you short circuit yourself.
You do. You end up I've paid so much money in taxes and penalties in the last couple years from what he had taken out. I think this will be like my first year without penalties and taxes from that pulling from retirement early, even though like during COVID, they gave you the I don't know a free pass, to be able to take money out of your 401k. But then you had so much time to put it back in. Well, obviously my husband hadn't secured another job. So therefore I am, whatever we had in there, we probably had a third of what we got to keep a third of probably what was in there, because the rest went to taxes and to all those penalties that they give you.
The marketing of your books, when did that start?
Oh my goodness. Probably it was last spring. Everything's been such a blur. Like everything happened so fast. It was probably about, I want to say April and May of last year was when it was official. My website was up. I had, a friend, go through all of my branding with me, and then getting the book actually published and in people's hands was in May of this year.
Yeah, we as writers are not necessarily experienced in publishing details.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not salespeople. We're certainly not marketing people. And so you attend this Zoom meeting, or you talk to somebody, or you go to this webinar or whatever. And so there's just a lot of information out there. I publish books for other people, and I try to get them at the very beginning. When you start writing, start publishing, start marketing, because
Yes.
this train going down that track of writing and that train going down that track of marketing, and people expect your book at a certain time, even if it's late. Yep. They know it's coming. But if that train arrives at the track in the station and you haven't started marketing, well, you got a bunch of books, but nobody knows you wrote them.
Exactly.
So
yes.
It's a delay mechanism that we as authors don't appreciate, especially if we only write one or two books. You know, if there's a series to going, okay, I learned a lot of lessons on this one, I'm not gonna do that again. Or I talked to this person, that works really well, you ought to try that. And so there's just lots of little things there, and that's part of what the show is about. You have experiences that really worked for you or didn't work for you that people need to know about, and you've covered them quite well. Let me go on for a brief moment about covers.
Yes.
You have a really sexy cover there for the Lost and Found in Mexico. How did you come up with that one?
That one's very, very special and near and dear to my heart. My publisher, we were doing the editing and everything, and she's like, you have to come up with a cover. She's like, I can, have people mock stuff up and And I was sitting in my office, and my husband, a couple of years back, had been working with this girl named Rachel Thompson from Canada to paint me I love the beach. I'm very much a beach girl. Paint me a beautiful Caribbean beach scene. And I was sitting in my office, and I looked up at it, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can't use that one because it's a Caribbean looking. But I reached out to Rachel then and said, I know you and my husband literally worked for over a year on coming up with what she was going to paint. And I said, would you be willing to design me a cover for my book? I will pay you. I'll give you royalties, whatever, but it would mean a lot to me because you knew my husband. And she's like, of course. And she's like, this is my gift to you to do it. So she had sent me over 5 different pieces. And this is the one that just resonated with me. And I thought my husband and I would love it because we love the beach. We love the sunsets. It's just, it's tranquil, but it encaptures our relationship.
You said you were down at Cabo. Did you ever see the green flash of the sunset?
Nope.
I was in Guaymas, and just about sunset every night, people walk out to the beach, and as you're watching the setting sun, I can say 19 out of 20 nights in a row, on the average, you see the green flash. And that sun just sets right into the horizon, and there's this green that literally flashes up for about a half a second to a second. And
okay.
And it's just, and I would figure, well, down that far south, probably still have the opportunity to see it. But I was just kind of curious because I know in Key West I could not see it. I know in Hawaii it's rare to see, but there's some places where it just every night it's there. And so I just kind of curious on that one. Well, we're down to the last little bit of. What's that?
I said, nope, I haven't seen that one. So I'm going to make sure I look for it next time I'm down there.
Okay. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find your books? And let's wrap things up here because we've got another show coming up. So please.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
How do they contact Candy Wolff, and how do they get your books?
Yes. The best way to contact me is, my website is www.candywolff, CANDYWOLFF.com. They can email me at candy@candywolff.com. As well, my Instagram is at candywolff with 1 F, the number 3. And they can call or text. I'm always love to help people. And I mean, that is 952-687-7968. Like I said, they can message me, call me, email me. Everything they need to know is on my website. And then it does have all of my on the tags for LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram as well. So they could follow, go on the website and then follow me all there. And then all the podcasts like this one too will all be placed on the website. So people will be able to have an opportunity to listen to us.
Okay. So for our audio audience, Candy Wolff, it's Candy, CANDY, Wolff, WOLFF.com. So it's candy@candywolff.com for her email address. And Candy, thank you so very much for your time today. I really and truly appreciate it. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm glad you were able to share the experiences you had and be able to help others through that. So thank you so very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
We'll catch you all later on. Take care. Rhett Laughlin here, getting ready to sign off on the Corner Bookstore. Next up is our show on USA Global TV and Radio Network called The Wise Ones. John Goodman is my guest coming up, and he has usually different than most. We're talking about a contest for authors, and it's kind of a unique one. So with that in mind, I'd like to just take a brief moment and talk about it's the L. Ron Hubbard contest, and he's going to be talking about that in detail. So with that being said, please join me in about 20 minutes on The Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And immediately following that will be my finale show for Healthy Habits for 2025, start today on Talking Heads at again, an hour and 20 minutes from now. So with that, I bid you adieu. We'll catch you later on. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.